welcome to a cover story conversation with Dr. Sanjaya Baru. He's an author, he's a former editor, he's written the book Accidental Prime Minister, along with other books on policy and governance. He's also been a former advisor to Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh. Dr. Baru, welcome to this conversation right now in election time. It's good to have you here.
Thank you, Priya. Good to see you.
And also, we've actually began by one of your, I was reading one of your columns recently where you made a very interesting point. You say India needs not so much a strong leader, but a wise leader. In this time of chappas in chati and all the rest of it, I think that's a very pointed comment to make. If you can just, tell our viewers what you wrote in the column and the arguments that you made.
Well, the column was provoked by statements both by the Prime Minister himself and a couple of his cabinet colleagues, including the Foreign Minister Jaishankar, that given the global environment today, the war in Ukraine, the war in Middle East, China's rise, all kinds of external kind of challenges and potential economic challenges, if some of these conflicts continue, that in this very uncertain world, it's important for India to have a strong leader so that, India can be guided through these very stormy waters. And I then sat back and thought about this argument, and I said, this is a false argument. Because the fact is that we have gone through very difficult times, right from 1947, when it is wisdom of the leadership, rather than power of the leadership, that really saved this country. I mean, I begin with Nehru. I mean, look at the early 50s. Nehru was not such a powerful prime minister at that time. He had very tall leaders as his cabinet colleagues. He had Morarji Desai, he had C.D. Deshmukh, Rajagopalachari, even B.R. Ambedkar initially. A lot of big leaders were part of his cabinet. So, he was among equals. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. So Prime Minister, in fact, even in a constitution, is really Prime Minister is described as first among equals. And the fact is that they were equals. Even Indira Gandhi, before the emergency, was not such a powerful prime minister. And yet she guided India through the whole Bangladesh war, 1971. Before that, she was called Gungi Gudiya.
Right.
And then she became Ma Durga. So, very important and difficult moments in our history. We have not necessarily had powerful prime ministers. And then I come to 1991. Which in many ways was the most serious crisis India had. It was a balance of payments crisis, a foreign exchange crisis, a fiscal crisis, and then there's a global crisis because the Soviet Union collapsed. Soviet Union was India's most important trade partner and defense partner. And in that chaos, and the chaos again multiplied by the fact that Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated, so domestic politics were in a disarray, you had a man like Narasimha Rao. I mean, nobody called Narasimha Rao a strong 56-inch prime minister. He was a weak prime minister, but he was a wise man. He guided the economy, the country through very difficult times. And then even Vajpayee and Dr. Manmohan Singh, you look at the kinds of things they were able to do. Dr. Manmohan Singh till 2012 was not seen as a weak prime minister. It's only after 2012 that, the whole narrative of his weakness began. But between 2004 and 2012, for those 8 years, he was generally regarded as a successful prime minister, which is why he was re-elected in 2009. People forget. In 2009, the opposition, the main opposition, the BJP was led by a powerful man called L.K. Advani. He was, the Iron Man. He was seen as the second Vallabhbhai Patel of India, etc. But he could stand up to Dr. Manmohan Singh. So given all these historical examples, I argue that what we need is wisdom, not strength in the prime minister. A wise prime minister can guide this country through very, very difficult times. So we don't need a prime minister with 370 in parliament or 400 in parliament. In fact, if you go and look at the one prime minister who had more than 400, Rajiv Gandhi, by many yardsticks, he was not such a great success as prime minister.
Right.
The kind of policies that he pursued. So, strength, political strength or parliamentary strength does not give you wisdom. The wisdom comes from your ability to consult others, work with others, be an equal, which Modi is certainly not.
So you're saying there's a danger of a too strong prime minister. Strength also comes from numbers in becoming a dictator. Is that the danger, or not listening to others, as in the case of Rajiv Gandhi?
Yes, I mean, you don't have to impose emergency to be a dictator. You can
Right.
create an environment in which people are afraid to disagree. People are afraid to tell you what is wrong. And I think that in some ways is the kind of situation we find ourselves in the last few years. And this is what I hear from a lot of people in government, particularly those who are retired and are willing to talk. But even some of those who are still there around, whether in the BJP or in the RSS or in the government, that there's a fear, there's a lack of courage to hold a mirror to the leadership. And I think you see even a very tall leader like Rajnath Singh, for example, who was
Mm.
president of the party. He was president of the Bharatiya Janata Party when Mr. Modi was chief minister. And you don't see that kind of willingness to stand up and be a leader. And I think that is something that worries that all these institutions. I mean, you look at the election commission, the latest example, where there's a lot of complaints against the prime minister. And in the past, whenever there were complaints to the election commission, the notice has gone to the candidate concerned. It's the candidate who's told, why did you say this? Or the candidate who's punished for doing whatever he or she has done. This time
Mm.
the letter goes to the party, and as if to have a parallel, they sent a letter to the Congress president about Rahul. It shows a commission that is scared. They're afraid. Yeah, simple as that. So you don't need an emergency in order to have an authoritarian government. You just have to instill fear in those working, and then
Mm.
you don't get any feedback.
But you also need a stable government. That's the whole argument in saying, give us, help us cross 270, whichever party is, that we will give you stability. In the past, have you seen that coalition governments do better or do one party rule? What works better for India?
Well, first of all, certainly you need more than 272 to form a
Mm.
government. So anybody who says he needs 272, fine, good. They should get 272. He should get probably 280. I have no problem with that. But the point is that stability of a government is a product of leadership. Look at Manmohan Singh. He remained in power for 10 years, despite the fact that in the middle of his term, first term, the left tried to destabilize him. The
Right.
whole no confidence motion
Exactly.
of
Mm.
June, July 2008. There was an attempt to destabilize the government. But it is his wisdom and his leadership that ensured stability of that regime. And came back with more seats in parliament. In 2009, Congress got more seats, 60 more seats, right? So
Mm.
the stability of a government is ensured by wise leadership, by wisdom. It's not that you need to hold everybody together by threat of some anti-defection law, which of course has failed in this country. Everybody is defecting all the time across
Mm.
all borders. But
I think
it's
ED triumphs any other law.
yeah, exactly. So, we have had minority governments that have done very well. We take Vajpayee's government. It was also a minority
Correct.
government. He had
Mm.
support of Chandrababu Naidu and DMK or AIDMK, etc. And they managed to do significant things. I mean, Vajpayee declared India a nuclear weapons state. The United States and Japan, today one of our closest friends imposed economic sanctions on us. There were serious concerns about the economy at that time after the nuclear tests. But he managed to steer the country through a very difficult time. So we see between 1991 and 2014,
Mm.
the entire 14, 15-year period, three prime ministers who had bare majorities. Narasimha Rao, Vajpayee, and Manmohan Singh, all three had bare majorities. And yet all three did significant things and took the country forward. Today, for example, people say, oh, the world thinks India is rising. I keep hearing this all the time. Yesterday, the Foreign Minister Jaishankar said in Surjit Bhalla's book launch that, oh, today foreign policy in India's place in the world has become an issue. Ordinary people are also talking about it. But India's place in the world, the world recognized, we recognized in the 90s, when every, what is it, Fortune 500 company was wanting to come and invest here, when India went nuclear,
Mm.
so it was all the books on rising India were written in the 90s and
Right.
early 2000s, right? And it's
Right.
because of that that the US did the nuclear deal with us. The US reached out to us. George Bush reached out to us, changed American law, and gave India a nuclear status because they recognized the importance of India. And that was 20 years back.
So you're saying coalition government, but with a wise leader. I mean, we also saw that Gujarat and Devi Gowda experiments that failed. So there has to be the right mix, I guess, of leadership more than numbers, I would say, right?
Exactly. I mean, you're right. Gujarat, Devagowda, Charan Singh, Chandrasekhar, we've had a lot of short-lived governments, and in fact, they prove the rule that inexperience. For example, Devagowda was inexperienced, Gujarat was inexperienced. They became prime ministers because all the really powerful provincial leaders like Mulayam Singh and Chandrababu Naidu and Jyoti Basu, all they were the real power centers,
Yeah.
and they wanted a puppet in Delhi.
The lowest common denominator.
And that is why those became short-lived governments. But Narasimha Rao was nobody's puppet. In fact, one of the reasons Congress Party, was very angry with him, or Sonia Gandhi was very angry with him, was he chose not to behave like a puppet. He chose to behave like a prime minister.
Which is why now they're looking for leaders who will also, not cut ties, the umbilical cord with 10 janpaths, which is why the Congress is not able to produce another strong leader because of this worry.
Well, maybe. I mean, I think things have now moved on. I mean, now you have
Yeah.
a very different situation, and you probably, I think the experiment with Dr. Manmohan Singh proved that you can have a Congress prime minister who has some space. And Manmohan Singh did have a lot of space in his first term. It's only in his second term that he began to yield that space.
Hmm. So what is you said, are you happy this 270, even 280 is good for a stable government, but there is a stable government and there is authoritarian government. So is there some figure we can say that maybe 310, 315 is good for stability? More than that, it becomes authoritarian. I mean, they're talking about 400 par these days.
Well, that will be terrible. 400 par
That would be
today
terrible.
in the current environment with the kind of leadership there is and the kind of bureaucracy there is. People who are willing to crawl when they are asked to bend.
Yeah.
A government with 400 plus seats would be a tragedy for this country. But I think I have a slightly different argument. In fact, I've just written a column on this, which is that I don't think anybody would want a very, very powerful prime minister in the third term of Mr. Modi. And when I say anybody, I mean even within his own party. After all,
Especially within
politics,
the party.
especially in the party. I mean, politics is about power, right? You don't become a member of parliament in order to, garland the prime minister every other day. You become a member of parliament because you are in the business of acquiring power and using that power. Okay? And politics is about power. That's a basic, law of politics. And if politics is about power, then every politician would like to exercise some power. Whether he's a sarpanch in a village, whether he's a Zilla Parishad chairman, whether he's an MLA or an MP or a minister, whatever his level of political activity, every person in politics would like to, enjoy some power, exercise some power. And if you are working in an environment in which you have no power, where you have a finance minister, no power, foreign minister, no power, defense minister, no power, you are operating in an environment in which individuals do not have and are incapable of exercising their individual power. Then you have an authoritarian system, right? And I don't think anybody wants. So I would imagine that even within the BJP, most people must be hoping that you get 280, and you have a government which is dependent on everybody being happy is a better situation. It's a happier state of affairs because then the leadership is more sensitive to the members in parliament. Then they don't have to behave like ducks toddling in the lake. They can behave like leaders. They can stand up and speak. Right? And that is important for politicians. Recently I was reading about this MP from Ladakh who's been denied a ticket. People forget that he rose to national fame when he gave a very powerful speech in parliament.
Right.
That he was on television, primetime television. The whole country said, "My God, who is this young boy?"
Correct.
And that is how. So you want to be able to shine. You want to be able to show to your constituents that you have a voice, that you can express your opinion. That is how politicians derive, sustenance. And when you create a party where everybody is afraid to speak, including the president of a party, I don't think any one of them wants 370, 390, 400. I would imagine that all of them would be quite happy if the BJP ends up below 300 and closer to 280 or something like that. They're all really quite happy.
A number for the prime minister should be somewhere below 300 and not beyond that. Otherwise, the BJP is churning out, there is no second rung. Are they now making the same mistake as maybe the Indira Congress made and the Sonia Congress made?
Exactly. And that is the
That's another
second point.
fallout.
That is the second point I make in my column for the Indian Express, which is that, sometime back I went and met Pranab Mukherjee, former President Pranab Mukherjee, couple of months before he unfortunately passed away. And then we were talking about the Congress party. And I said to him, Sir, when do you think the decline of the Congress party began? And he sat back in his chair and thought about it and said, I think 1969. And I was not prepared for that answer. I thought you would say 1984 or even later, 89. So then we talked about the importance of 69. And that reminded me of what Narasimha Rao wrote in his book, The Insider. It's a fictitious biography of Narasimha Rao. And then he has a beautiful line in that book which says, the party became a proprietorship. That it was no longer a political party, but it was a family proprietorship. And I think that was the beginning of the end of the Congress party, which is that the leadership became so powerful that the entire organization depended on that. Everybody was asking for votes in the name of Indirama. Indirama, Indirama, Indirama. That was the slogan of the Congress party, right? And even Rajiv Gandhi and certainly subsequently the entire Congress party, everybody is asking for votes in the name of one person. The organization dwindled. Provincial leadership became weak. You could be chief minister of Andhra Pradesh, but you couldn't get 5 minutes with the prime minister in Delhi. That was the situation, for example, when Rajiv Gandhi was prime minister. I know from personal knowledge of people like Channa Reddy or others who are chief ministers in the state, Anjaya, they were treated like municipal mayors in Delhi, not like chief ministers. And the party declined because of the weakening of provincial leadership. My fear, or at least my hope, if you like, I don't know how to say fear, that is happening in the BJP, where you have unknown individuals becoming chief ministers, Rajasthan chief minister, Madhya Pradesh. You have local leadership being sidelined, Vasundhara Raje or Shivraj Singh Chauhan. You have people who are not able to hold themselves, like this chap in Maharashtra. Each of these chief ministers or provincial leaders can't win an election on their own. So you have gone back to that Indira phase when the vote is for Narendra Modi. Now, as long as Mr. Modi is there, he may deliver the votes. What happens tomorrow when he's not there?
Exactly.
And it is one thing for elderly leaders like Rajnath Singh to say, "Theek hai, I'm also around for a few more years. He's around for a few more years, so I am safe." But what if you are a 25-year-old member of parliament? Today, if you are a 25-year-old member of parliament of the BJP in UP or Karnataka or Maharashtra, and you're looking at 20 years of your career in front of you, or more than that, 40 years of career, what will ensure your victory in the next general election, in the general election after that, in the general election after that? You can't continue to say, oh, Modi, Modi, Modi. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, that currency will get demonetized. Then what happens to you? So I think the organizational weaknesses that's naturally come when you have very powerful leadership, those are going to weaken the party. And that is why I think a lot of people in the party, including in the RSS, would be worried, is the organization getting weak? Are provincial leaders getting weak? Why do we have chief ministers who can be removed tomorrow morning? That's the kind of people who are now provincial leaders of the BJP.
The BJP. Which, see, at least, Pranab Mukherjee said 69, but beyond that, at least there was, succession plan. It was a dynastic succession plan, whatever you may call it. But here, do you see anything at all happening? As you said, all the tall leaders are being cut to size. Is this, will the RSS step in? What will happen 5 years from now or 10 years from now, whatever?
Well, let me correct you on your remark about a dynastic succession plan. There was no dynastic succession plan. The fact is that Indira Gandhi became Prime Minister because powerful provincial leaders in the Congress made her the Prime Minister. Whether it's a Kamaraj or Nijalingappa or Sanjeeva Reddy or Atulya Ghosh or Bahuguna or Kamlapati Tripathi, you go across the country, YB Chavan, VP Naik, they are powerful provincial leaders who among themselves decided that she would be the PM. Problem was subsequently that they thought she would be Gungi Gudia and they could play around with her, while she turned out to be Durga Mata and she kind of split the party and threw all these guys out. That's a different story. But she became Prime Minister not because she was Nehru's daughter, but because she was acceptable to the powerful provincial leadership within the Congress party. And
actually, you are right.
Each of them was powerful. People forget today. You go back to the mid-60s, every chief minister had provincial bases. They were powerful people. How many powerful chief ministers do we have today? A Mamata Banerjee, a Stalin.
They're all non-BJP, non-Congress powerful chief ministers.
Naveen Patnaik. I mean, you have 5, 6 powerful chief ministers. The rest are all there because someone or the other in Delhi wants them to be there.
You are right. I also remember that conversation I had with Nayanthara Sehgal, and she said Nehru never planned a dynasty. It was, as you pointed out, it was this the idea to bring in Indira Gandhi as a Gungi Gudiya, and then, of course, events took their own turn. We're out of time, but before we go, one quick comment on the election so far. Are you surprised by the rhetoric? Do you think Ram Mandir and religion still play a role going by the rhetoric that is happening?
No, I think the rhetoric is in response to a low turnout in the first phase. I think it seems to be that a lot of those who voted for the BJP in 2019 are probably staying at home. So how do you get them? Because this rhetoric is not going to bring out the non-BJP voter. Right? This rhetoric is going to bring out the BJP voter. And it suggests that their assessment is that in the first phase, many of them stayed home. And go back to 2014, why did Kejriwal win in 2015? Because a lot of the BJP voters in Delhi stayed home.
Complacent.
They were unhappy with the representation they got in the first Modi government. And so the provincial BJP leadership in Delhi, many of them just stayed home and Kejriwal swept. So I think that is probably the fear now that people, Vasundhara supporters or Chauhan supporters, the supporters of the local kind of leadership, maybe all sitting at home saying, "Okay, let Modi manage the election. We'll all be at home."
On that note, thank you so much for this, and I'm going to keep looking out for your columns for more ideas for conversations like this. But on that note, thank you so much.
Thank you, Priya.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.